Dr. Raja, Sri D. Raja. Oh, you manipulated it, eh? You managed it.
Okay.
Absenteeism, eh?
Huh?
You managed this absenteeism. The Raja, being Raja, can do so many things.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, budget is a very serious exercise. And in a country like ours, budget occurs great importance. Economics and politics cannot be divorced. Whatever the claims the government makes in political domain, they will have to be correspondingly supported by the economic policies outlined by the government. Their budget becomes important to question the government's policies and question the government's understanding of the economy. Sir, considering the time constraint, I move point by point. This budget doesn't have adequate steps to contain inflation. There is no measure to create more jobs as promised by the Prime Minister and the government. There is no increase in direct tax on the rich. But government gives assurance to reduce the corporate tax. There is burden of indirect tax which continues to be more on the poor people, Sir, government talks about banking reforms, but there is no visible, tangible action against willful defaulters. Government doesn't want to speak on willful default by the rich, by the corporate houses. But government goes on expressing concern over the growing non-performing assets of banks and in a way blaming it on the banks, nationalized banks and public sector banks. Sir, if you closely scrutinize the figures, there is less allocation on health and education. I do not know what is the understanding of the government. Even the International Monetary Fund has pointed out the growing inequalities in the society among the nations. And it is the IMF economists who advise the nation states to spend more on health and education. But here we find less allocation on health and education. Sir, the outlay on farmers, farming sector, farmers' welfare really stands reduced. And in the case of scheduled caste component plan, tribal sub-plan, despite the claims of government, there is actual reduction. And government will have to consider some of these issues in the interest of our economy. Sir, since 1991 onwards, our economy has been highly dependent on foreign exchange inflows, whereas it is dependent on more foreign exchange, that is US dollars, than Indian rupees. I can very well call Indian economy is not a rupee economy. it has become US dollar dominated economy. US dollar dominated economy. Sir, even the current account and GDP of India been determined by more inflow of American dollars, the foreign investments. Always our current account is in deficit mode where US dollars receivables by way of exports and services are less than payables to imports and services. Sir, always we find the US dollar is premium and currently it is around 6%. Our economy is really dependent on US dollar. Sir, as our borrowings, all our borrowings, including the government, the external commercial borrowings by government companies are all in London Interbank offered rate, rate, which is called LIBOR, rate of interest and denominated in foreign currency, which are market-driven factors, and mostly are controlled by manipulators and speculators than real economic factors of supply and demand. I do not know whether the finance minister and his team applied their mind, because there are issues. I raised it in the past also. While the economy is in such a form, our country already faced huge foreign currency derivative fraud and LIBOR manipulation in the year 2006, 2009. And this side may tell me if I am wrong, I stand corrected. And the matter, sir, the manipulation in the year 2006 and 9 have affected our economy to the extent of 40 billion US dollars. And the matter is pending in Honorable Supreme Court since February 2010 under public interest litigation. It is for the government to probe the issue and try to find out the truth how this fraud was committed. The RBI has fined 19 banks, which includes public sector bank, that is State Bank of India, 6 private banks in India and 19 foreign banks in India. All paid the penalty unconditionally without appeal and accepted the guilt. This is, I am talking about even the United States, where we witnessed this fraud. The FBI investigated this fraud and levied more than multi-billion US dollars on all fraudulent banks, including Bank of America, JB Morgan Chase, and all these details are there before the government. But what I am trying to say, government will have to investigate it further, and it is in the interest of our economy how this kind of derivative fraud was allowed in the past and what we should do now. Sir, coming to the agricultural sector, the government talks a lot about agriculture sector, but actually speaking, the Fasal Bima, that is the scheme they are talking about, the Fasal Bima eludes majority of farmers, as the budget estimates that only half will be covered by March 2019. That is what your budget says, that it will always elude the poor farmers who need the facility most simply because Bima companies work on market logic. They are driven by market. They are work on market logic and not on social security logic or social benefit logic or social welfare logic. Sir, Anyway, the budget is a meager 9,000 crores, 9,000 crores. Large populations of tenant farmers, tenants, I am talking about tenant farmers, stand totally bypassed. And there is no provision to meet the consumption needs. Sir, the finance minister announced several things. I can quote how the funds allocated for Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes is in actual figures less, not to the, meet the requirement of the situation as it prevails today. Sir, if you take the scheduled caste component plan, tribal sub-plan, finance minister claims there is increase, but what is our understanding of scheduled caste sub-plan, component plan or tribal sub-plan? Sir, these plans were conceived way back in 1970s. We had the planning commission. Now after your government came, you dismantled planning commission. Now there is Niti Ayog. I do not know what is the mandate of Niti Ayog. If I understand what Niti Ayog does, it is nothing but transferring public assets to the private sector, promoting private sector, patronizing private sector. Even the Niti Ayog goes to the extent of saying privatize some functions of Niti Ayog railways. And why you are privatizing public sector undertakings, I cannot understand. Sir, in this house, we discussed what is the strength of our economy. If not the public sector undertakings, if not the public sector banks, if not the insurance companies, what is the strength of our economy? Why you intend to go for reckless, massive disinvestment of public sector undertakings? Sir, Salem steel plants, one of the best public sector undertakings. Why your government should allow Salem steel plants to be privatized? And Bengal chemicals, why you want to privatize? IDPL, why Durgapur, IDPL, why you want to privatize? What is your understanding of Indian economy? And sir, this is one issue. In that context, I raised this scheduled caste component plan and tribal sub-plan. Sir, it was, the issue was raised yesterday by my comrade Punia, my colleague Punia. Earlier, it was raised by Jadhav, Narendra Jadhav, who was planning commission member. If you go by Jadhav guidelines, what should have been the money? And the MOS Finance is sitting here. I am asking him, if the guidelines were to be followed, this year's allocation would have worked out to rupees 91,386 crores. In other words, this year's allocation for SCs is rupees 44,246 crores short of the agreed amount. Similar shortfall for STs works out to rupees 18,073 crores. What are we doing, sir? Are we honest and truthful to our own people? Why this fiscal statistical jugglery that we are playing with, and we are trying to mislead the people? In fact, your allocation for scheduled caste component plan, tribal sub-plan has gone down. It is not to the tune of amount which has to be according to the Jadhav guidelines, the planning commission guidelines. That is where I question the mandate of Niti Ayog. Who decides all these things? Who decides? I want to know how this scheduled caste component plan or tribal sub-plan should be there. Who decides? Government should explain to us. In the absence of planning commission, some authority will have to decide. And there is no central legislation. Way back, we had a legislation in the state assembly, in Andhra Pradesh, United Andhra Pradesh. Later on, we had one legislation in the state of Karnataka. And there is a demand there should be a central legislation to govern the functions of scheduled caste component plan and tribal sub-plan. Whether the government is agreeable to it, whether the government has any commitment to the welfare of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, if there is commitment, then agree for a central legislation. Sir, I am completing, I am coming to end, sir. Then agree for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe sub-plans, a central legislation. Sir, because you have rung the bell, I must obey to you. You are my beloved chairperson.
I know you will only stop after finishing all points. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah.
That's why he says beloved chairperson.
Yeah.
Sir, finally I come to the end. Sir, what is the real problem which we are confronting? The unprecedented economic inequality, sir. Let us forget which party we belong to. Let us look at the reality as reality. What is happening in the country? Are we not confronting this issue, unprecedented inequality, where poor people are becoming more poorer? A handful of corporate houses, 1% of the population owning 58% of national assets, wealth. What is this, sir, story of wealth creation in our country? Who creates wealth in our country? If not the toiling people, if not the workers, farmers, agricultural workers, or the employees, who creates? They create wealth. What is their share in the country's wealth? Why there should be such unprecedented inequality? Horrible inequality, sir. Shameful inequality. Why our people, morning we discussed the existence of manual scavenging, how people are dying in septic tanks, how people are denied manual scavenging on one side, moon, Chandrayaan on other side. What is this? India of Mangalyaan. Mangalyaan. Manual scavenging on one side, Mangalyaan on the other side. India presents an horrible picture of conflicts, and discriminations, disparities, and this budget will have to address such fundamental issues. Government, instead of resorting to rhetorics, poverty, poor people, empowerment of poor people, what do you do on the ground? Through your economic policies. That's what I would like to know from the government. What do you do for the upliftment of poor people through your economic policies? So, sir, these are some of the fundamental issues.
Yes.
Government will have to think over, government will have to reconsider, government will have to, really, they can work. If there is a will, they can find the way. But whether they have that will to address these issues, that is my question.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, Raja, thank you very much. Now, Sri